UFC Vegas 97 UFC Fight Night event at the Apex is going to be this Saturday, the 7th of September, headlined by Gilbert Burns and Sean Brady. If we go down to the prelims and check out what's going on here, we've got a bunch of decent matchups. Nothing crazy for name value. Again, this weekend is not a big name value weekend, but we'll be making some fun fights across the board. This is no doubt. For example, let's get into the topology. Nathan Fletcher versus Zygmantas Ramanska, however you say that name. Interesting. This is going to be a fun prospect matchup. I don't know if they're going to be fighting at bantamweight. I believe they're fighting at featherweight, but two prospects on the come up. Really, really fun, dangerous young guys, okay? Young guys. Not exactly what we're accustomed to seeing when it comes to prospects. But we got other prospects like Dylan Budka and Andre Petrosky in the next fight. What's interesting about that is that they are two young guys, or two non-young guys that are prospects. Guys that are not very young, but are considered prospects. Now, who would you rather see? Young guys that have promise in their careers, that can start something young, have a couple losses, come back, face adversity, fight through it, and become something greater? That's what I'd rather see. As opposed to Andre Petrosky and Dylan Budka, who have gone on to be, I don't know, decent fighters, but no longer these prospects that we're supposed to be excited for. I'm just not into it. These guys are getting older. They're at the tail end of their, athletic peak prime years. Why do I want to watch these guys contend as prospects anymore? Whatever. So I'm excited for the first matchup. Andre Petrosky and Dylan Budka will probably put on a fun fight. These guys come to scrap. I'll give them that. But in terms of prospects to look out for, it's Nathan Fletcher. These are the guys that we want to look forward to and prop up. Vanessa Demopoulos, the stripper herself, is fighting again. Listen, super overrated. She has a fun personality and she's kind of crazy, and that's pretty much all she has to offer. Nothing super important from her in total across her career. She's got a couple of good wins. She's got some wins that she arguably shouldn't deserve. Some decisions that went her way that arguably didn't really go her way. The judges just gave it to her. We know how the UFC works. We know how MMA works. Sometimes judging isn't always perfect. Gabriel Santos and Yiza coming off, I believe, the road to the UFC. Let's look at his last couple of fights. Yep. Armbar win, decision win, and another armbar. So this guy, like I thought, I remember correctly, he is a submission specialist. Very, very dangerous on the ground. Always have to watch out for these guys. This would be Yiza right here. Kind of an interesting looking hairstyle he's got going on. And then the next matchup is an absolute banger as well. Two Brazilians, Filipe dos Santos and Andre Lima. Andre Lima, if you remember, is the guy who was bit a couple of months back, beginning of the year. Went through that whole crazy scenario. He's now going to be fighting Filipe dos Santos at flyweight, two flyweights. If they can both make weight, very, very fun, exciting prospects on the come up at flyweight. But can these guys make weight? That's really the problem we have here. This one's going to be a fun one. They're probably going to strike it out on the feet, but expect these guys to mix it up and get into some fun scrambles on the ground as well. Always look forward to that when it comes to the flyweights. These guys can go anywhere and get submissions anywhere. They're so crafty, they're so small, they're so flexible, they're so quick. They can snatch up submissions, collect these knockout TKOs. They usually don't have the kind of power to floor somebody, but they can get these TKOs because they just throw so many strikes. Very, very impressive stuff from these guys all the time. Very, very fun fighters to watch. This one is going to be an absolute can't miss fight on the prelims. On to the next, Isaac Dolgarian, Brandon Moreau. Isaac Dolgarian went tooth and nail against Christian Rodriguez a couple of months ago in his last fight. This guy came in on late notice and arguably beat Christian Rodriguez, who's one of the highly touted prospects in the bantamweight / featherweight division. Isaac Dogarian allegedly is going to be fighting at featherweight for this matchup. Brandon Moreau, good, solid scrapper is what I would describe him as. The guy, yeah, he's 8-2. He's beat some decent competition on the regional scene. His last loss was to Terrence McKinney, which doesn't bode well. As we know, Terrence McKinney is not a super well-rounded, great overall fighter, but he's very dangerous in the first minute of the fight. So to get finished by him isn't nothing to sneeze at. The guy that doesn't mean that he's a terrible fighter. Isaac Dogarian looks to be a grapple-heavy fighter with some decent striking ability, speed in his hands, but just not the kind of technical striking ability that most guys are looking for when it comes to dangerous standing ability. But I expect Isaac to win. He looked really, really impressive against Christian Rodriguez. Brandon Moreau lost to Terrence McKinney, as we know, but he hasn't really impressed me on the regional scene either. He's just a solid overall fun fighter. Guys come to fight, and that's what I like to see, so I'll give him his respect there. Ovince St. Preux will be fighting Ryan Spann. Ryan Spann, as we know, has had some ups and downs the last couple of fights. Ovince St. Preux is at the tail end of his career. Listen, two old guys, two sloppy light heavyweights that have heavy hands, and the bare minimum basic striking ability that could get them to the top of the division. Listen, this is not a highly technical, highly respected matchup. These guys are probably just going to go in there. It's probably going to be a first-round knockout, but it could also be a 3-round knockdown, drag-out, absolute boring fucking fight that I could care less if I ever see any of these guys ever again. Either of these guys, Ryan Spann or Ovince St. Preux. These guys both kind of stink. I don't really care about them at all. On to the next. Ruang Zhu versus, let me get his first name, Chris Padilla. All right. Interesting matchup again. Another guy coming off the road to the UFC out of Asia. A lot of these guys are submission threats. This guy lost to Ignacio Bahamondes back in, 2022 already. That's interesting. But since then, has strung together a bunch of wins, gotten himself back into the UFC via road to the UFC. Chris Padilla, this guy, I keep talking about scrappers. Like this fight card is really just full of scrappers and crafty, just knockdown, drag out kind of guys that are willing to go to war any means necessary. His last win was against James Lontop. He was supposed to fight Chris Gonzalez a couple of weeks ago. That didn't come to fruition. I really don't know what we're going to get with this matchup. Two kind of like, I would describe them as fun fighters that are like trusted to go in there and put on a decent fight, but they're just kind of also two UFC reject kind of guys, like guys that are on the level of the UFC, just can't put it all together to make a good run in the UFC. They're just not talented or skilled enough to become full-fledged UFC studs, if you get what I'm saying. Anyway, on to the next. Here he is himself, the beautiful GOAT, our baby boy, Trevor fucking Peek. This guy has got like 3 or 4 losses in a row, but yet the UFC sees the potential for absolute banger fights. This guy comes in there, throws down, will not quit until the bell rings. You'll never get a bad fight from this guy. I don't think this guy can ever possibly put on a bad fight in his life. You couldn't pay this guy to put on a bad fight. Trevor Peek comes to bang. Yonel Ashmuz always throws hands as well. He's more of a smart, I dare say he's a smarter fighter here. I'm not really sure if he is or not, but he's got better technical striking for sure. He's got, I'd say he's got about as much power as Trevor Peek. So this is going to be a fun matchup. I think somebody's going to sleep in this one, either first round, second round. If this goes to the third round, man, you're in for a treat. This one's going to be a blood and guts war. Yeah. All right. Matt Schnell, the chinny chin himself, going in there against Alessandro Costa at flyweight. Who's coming and who's going in terms of flyweights? Matt Schnell not looking too hot his last couple of fights. Alessandro Costa has been up and down. His last win was over Kevin Borjas, who's nobody to sneeze at, but nothing really impressive. He also lost to Amir Albazi, and Steve Erceg has a win over Jimmy Flick. Who's coming and who's going? Who's going to prove that they remain in the top 10 in the flyweight division? Because these guys, they both are talented when it comes to their ability. It's just, can they put it all together at the right time on the right night? We will see. Matt Schnell, I believe, has the better, crisper boxing combination. Alessandro Costa is the crazier, craftier, more just all over the place fighter, can get it done anywhere. I believe Alessandro Costa just has the age, the chin to take him further in the division at this point. Matt Schnell is just at the tail end of his UFC career. I expect Alessandro Costa to come out with a win in this one. Kyle Nelson, Steve Garcia. Steve Garcia is probably the most boring, average fighter you will ever see, but this guy just can't lose. This guy just knows how to win. He's crafty, he's got a good chin, he's got decent stand-up, he's got good grappling that keeps him out of danger, and Kyle Nelson is just your average Canadian soy boy. He's got a beard on him, he's got a chin, and that's pretty much all he's got. He's just an average, overall, well-rounded fighter. You got to give him credit. He's able to get in there, get some wins, but Steve Garcia just doesn't know how to lose, and I really couldn't pick against this guy even if you paid me money to. Kyle Nelson, I'd argue, is the more dangerous fighter, but Steve Garcia just seems to weather these storms and find a way to win, and I can't turn him down. You can't bet against this guy. Next up, Jessica Andrade and Natalia Silva. The wifey herself, Natalia Silva, absolute stunning, beautiful girl, and Jessica Andrade, mountain of a man. We all know how this one's going to go. Natalia Silva, I hope and pray to the gods, the MMA gods, that she gets the win here, can pull it out. But Jessica Andrade, I think, is just too physical for her. Now, if Natalia Silva can keep her away, keep her on the feet, keep her at range, maybe she can get a win. We saw how Yan Xiaonan was able to take out Jessica Andrade. Maybe Natalia Silva can pull something out, but I don't believe Natalia Silva has the same kind of power as Yan Xiaonan. But I hope that she can get the win. I think she's fun to watch. She's got a great, fun karate, kickboxing style. Really, really fun to watch. Jessica Andrade is just an absolute marauder on the feet. Dangerous, dangerous fighter on the ground and on the feet. I'm expecting Jessica Andrade to probably just clinch, make this one a boring one, unfortunately, and get herself back in the win column against Natalia Silva. But I hope Natalia Silva can use her younger, more athletic frame to stay away from Jessica Andrade and maybe just get some kind of a kick, head kick knockout, maybe a question mark kick kind of thing. She's got great kicks. She's got great legs. Maybe she can get it done, but we'll see. I think Jessica Andrade is kind of at the tail end of her career as well. Maybe Natalia Silva can pull it off. Maybe she can prove that she belongs in the top 5. Maybe she's the next thing at 125. We will see. The young girl versus the old one. The marauder, the heavy, the mannish versus the young, feminine, technical, athletic ability. We'll see what happens. And finally, the main event. Gilbert Burns, Sean Brady. 2 grapple-heavy fighters that I believe might end up just slinging it out on the feet. But let's be realistic here. If I was a betting man, Sean Brady's going to be shooting takedowns like a madman. Gilbert Burns is going to be trying to stick and move and not go to the ground with him, even though I'd argue he could probably submit Sean Brady. I just think Sean Brady's top game, top pressure is just too much for most of these guys. We'll see in this fight if the Bilal Muhammad fight against Sean Brady was a fluke or not. Was Bilal much better than Sean Brady, or did Sean Brady just have a bad night? He claims that he had a bad night. Well, Sean, this is your time to shine, bro. This is your time to show out and prove that you've got what it takes, man. You've got to prove in this fight that Bilal Muhammad fight was just a fluke, because Gilbert Burns, although he's on a couple of fight losing streak, he's a tough guy. He's got heavy power in his hands, and he's got great jiu-jitsu, and he's got good takedown defense. Gilbert Burns, is one of these guys that's just a perennial top 10 contender. Sean Brady. I feel like this guy just doesn't like to fight. I feel like he's a really heavy grappler. He's really, really good at what he does, but I feel like he just doesn't like getting punched in the face. Now's your time to prove me wrong. I think Sean Brady is the younger, much stronger, much more athletic version of Gilbert Burns at this point in his career. Gilbert Burns is at the tail end of his career. He's about 37 years old right now, kind of tapering off in terms of his athletic ability, but power is kind of the last thing to go, and your technical jiu-jitsu ability is one of those last things to go as well. You might not be as athletic and crafty and swift with your jiu-jitsu, but you've still got that technical ability to stay out of danger. Can Sean Brady enforce his heavy ground pressure onto Gilbert Burns? That is going to be the question of this matchup. I expect Sean Brady to get a win, probably a 5-round decision win, if not some kind of a TKO on the ground. Maybe he can mix in the elbows. That would be what he needs to do to insert himself into the top 10, make a name for himself, commit himself to being a dangerous fighter, because as of this point, he just grinds out these 3-round decisions. This is your chance to show out in a main event, 5-round main event for Sean Brady. Can he put it all together? Can he put himself in a place to become dangerous and really show out this time? We will see. Good luck to Sean Brady. Gilbert Burns, can he make one last push for the top 5? We will see. Can he keep a name for himself, have a couple more fights, make a little more money, or is it Sean Brady's time to take over? That's the question in this matchup. Fun stakes, big stakes for both this and the co-main event. Very similar fights. 2 older fighters kind of on their way out, had a couple of losses, and then 2 younger fighters on the come up that are ready to take their spot if they can. But you can't sneeze at these older fighters. These are 2 fun matchups, big stakes, big consequences in the welterweight and the women's flyweight division. We will see you after the fight.